Good morning. Hey, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yeah, good. Excellent. Well, welcome to church. Luckily, it's not very smoky in here, so that's nice. If you don't know me, my name is Graham. I am the intern for the summer at New Life Church, and this is the third time I'm preaching, and I'm very honored to be up here. That's not my name. I don't even know how to say that. A little bit of context, running joke that I get a different G name every Sunday. It's actually Graham, just to clarify. But the last name is right. That is my last name. Try to say it. It's funny. So yeah, welcome to church. So this is my last sermon for the summer, which I'm really excited to share. We're going to be talking in Proverbs. So if you want to open up your Bibles to Proverbs Chapter 3, and as you do that, I'm just going to say just a quick little prayer. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you, God, for that we can come together, Lord, and the safety and the welcoming presence of your Spirit. And God, I just pray that you'd speak through me, Lord. It is not by my strength, but it's by yours. And I just thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen. Awesome. So yeah, Proverbs Chapter 3, verse 5 to 8. But just before I get into it, like I said, my last sermon, so I was questioning whether or not to go out with a bang, but I think I'm just going to play it chill. I'm not going to do anything crazy, but it's a lot of fun to be up here. Okay, so Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 8. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So it's a pretty simple passage about trust. It's pretty straightforward for the most part. But a little bit of background on the book of Proverbs. It was written primarily by King Solomon, and it was written for the people of Israel. Solomon was Israel's king during the time when the nation was faithful to God. Solomon wrote these wise verses before he got caught up in materialism and idolatry. So when he wrote this, he was doing pretty good before he went a little crazy, but it's all good. So the book of Proverbs provides wisdom and instructions to its readers. It's a type of wisdom that helps Christians develop attitudes and behaviors that are pleasing to God. So it's like a one-on-one how to be a Christian or Christian for dummies. But yeah, today we're going to focus just specifically on verse 5 to 8. And when I was preparing this message, it's a little different than the First Timothy series because I got to choose what I wanted to preach on. And so I was a little nervous. I'm like, what do I say? What do I do? So I was just chilling in the office, and trust came to mind because I've been being here in this internship. I've had to exercise that a lot, is trust, and it's not always easy. So I just felt led to just kind of share my experience being here in the bubble of like trust. So the beginning, verse 5 to 6, it's actually addressing the human condition. Trusting in God, it's a normal part of being a Christian. It's pretty basic understanding. But however, in the same verse, we're told not to lean on our own understanding. And when I first read that, I'm like, wow, that is not like it's super simple, trust, but then it's like complicated, not on your own understanding. Okay, what does that exactly mean? Not my own understanding. So I was wrestling that with a little bit. But like I said, like Solomon, who was writing this, he was just addressing how humans are, the human condition, how we're so quick and easy to lean on things that we know, like and to just do it yourself before going into trust with the Lord. But we're given a clear direction on what to do. Trust God. Don't lean on your own understanding. Submit to God, and he will make your path straight. It sounds easy when you say it, but actually doing it is so much more challenging. So like I said, it's really easy for us to try to figure things out on our own. It's just natural. Oh, something's broken. I'm going to try to fix it. I know growing up, I've always been a fixer. If there's something wrong or if someone's crying, I'm like, oh, I got to fix that. That's just how my brain works. But we're called not to always go to that. Like, don't always go like, oh yeah, I got this, or oh yeah, I'm going to fix this right now. And that's like counterintuitive how humans are, because we're at times can be a little self-absorbed and think we can do it. But in difficult times, we actually really can't do it on our own. We can't fix everything. We can't have all the answers. And sometimes that's so frustrating because you hear other wise people say nice, quotable things that you can put on your Instagram, but in reality, like, those are just words. They don't mean anything if you don't actually apply them. So, in tough situations, you have to accept the situation and just pray. And there's been so many times where I'm just in a bad place and I do everything but pray. And then I'm like, oh, I should pray. And then I feel like convicted. Probably should have did that first. But I didn't. And I rushed things, I said things, and I just wasn't in a good headspace. So like I said, sometimes you just have to accept your situation. And you have to accept that you're limited. So submit to God and know that He has you. So when I was preparing the sermon, I couldn't help but think of my first year at school. So September of 2017, I enrolled in Summit Pacific College, which is in Abbotsford, and that's a Bible college. And I was doing the Omega Global program, and I'm originally from Ontario. So when I first came to British Columbia, it was completely new. I've never seen mountains before. I've never seen all this beautiful, amazing province. So it was such a new experience. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any family here at the time. So I just started completely from scratch. And during my first year at Summit, of course, because school is expensive, I took student loans, which is very normal, and God bless that is there. But in my first year, I actually had some complications with my first year, with my student loans, because the loans I was taking, it was Ontario based. It's called OSAP. That's the title of the student loan, but it's Ontario specific. So since I was in British Columbia, but I was taking an Ontario student loan, I had to figure out some logistics a little bit. And so I remember when I flew to BC for the first time, I didn't really have a lot of my own money. I think I had $5,000 that I made from a job I was working a couple months before. But tuition at Summit Pacific College, it's $14,000 a year. So I'm a little short on funds. But then after my first semester, I went back home for Christmas, back to Ontario, and then when I was in my room just enjoying Christmas break, I got a notification that my student loans actually got cut short by $4,000. And to this day, I don't know why. I called, I tried to figure out, okay, what happened here? And it was just really oh, this is not good. Because originally I was getting about $9,000 in grants and loans, but then it went down to $5,000 or $6,000. And I just remember saying, oh, I can't pay for school anymore. And I started to panic. But the thing is not a good decision. I decided to just keep it to myself for a little bit. So every anxiety or fear or thought I had, I just held it in, and that is not healthy, not good. And so what happened was I did have enough of my own money to stay at Summit until the end of January, to pay for it myself, but not for the last 3 months. So I decided, you know what, my loans got cut short, but I'm loving my first year at Summit. I have incredible friends and mentors to learn from. And even though I'm short on money, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna fly back, and I'm just gonna trust that God has me. But little did I know that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. So I went back to Summit for the second semester, and like I said, I kept everything to myself except for one person. His name was Jacob Arnaud, and he's one of my best friends. He's such an amazing guy, and he is from the island, from Souk specifically. And we were in the first year at Summit together, and he was the only one I told, hey man, I'm short on money, this is tough, this is what's going on. And he was with me through the struggle. But I remember the last week of January, and I had a week to go to the finance guy, his name's Roger, and then pay him. But a week before that, I was so stressed. I was panicking. I don't have enough money. God, I want to stay here. And then that turned into frustration. Oh, God, why would you put me in this financial struggle? And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way at times. But I remember I was sitting in my room, and I was just like crying. Like I vividly remember this. Like I didn't have a roommate, so luckily I was by myself, but I just remember crying, like just ugly cry, a lot of tears, just in my room, just complaining, like, Lord, like you want me here, I know that, you've called me, but there doesn't seem to be a way right now. And so during that last week, I called my dad, last resort. Hey, mom and dad, I need some money. um, but my dad said, sorry, man, I don't have it. And I remember being like, oh, like that was my last resort, was asking my dad for some money. So I told my dad the situation, and he was a little frustrated with me because he's like, why didn't you tell me this sooner? Like I could have helped, or I could have, just known sooner. Anyways, so I told my dad the whole situation, and then that same week I was in class, and I get a text from my dad, and he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. And it was like right in the morning. It was like 8 a.m. I'm like, oh, okay. So after class, I called him back, and we were talking on the phone, and he was like, oh, hey, by the way, your school is paid for. I was like, what did you say? Excuse me? You got to explain some stuff. So I remember I was on the phone with my dad, and he's like, yeah, school's paid for. And I'm like, how? Like, what do you mean? So then my dad and his side, he was in Ontario, he told me what happened. So my dad has 2 jobs. He's a part-time professor at Durham College, but he also runs his own business. He's his own boss. He doesn't have any employees. But the best way I can describe his trade, it's very niche. It's like mold making or fabrication. I should have called him and asked what it was specifically, but I didn't. Basically, at his job, he was developing this new product, and he was receiving grants from people who wanted to like invest in this new product. And it's crazy because I needed exactly $4,000, and there's a man that contacted my dad. He's like, hey, I want to invest into your product here. And my dad's like, great, awesome. But then when he donated the money, there was $4,000 left over, and my dad's like, oh, my son needs this. And so my dad, he took that money and he gave it to the school. But I had no idea that happened. And so when my dad called me, I just started like ugly cry once again. But this time it was in a public hallway. So I was trying to like hide and like, I'm crying. But in that moment, all that fear and all that anxiety that I felt was it was gone. It was almost like a waste of time. Like when I was struggling and when I was in my room all of January and I was like, this is the worst. Like my attitude shifted so poorly that I started to think to myself, it doesn't matter that I'm doing this homework if I'm going to leave anyways. Like I allowed these fears and thoughts to come in. And it really like disrupted my college experience for that month. But then when my dad called me, it all went away. And I felt like an absolute tool because I'm like, wow, of course. Like God, he came in. And it's not like that every time. Sometimes God doesn't come right when you need it. But we don't always understand what his timetable is like. But what we can do and what we should do is trust in him anyways. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. It was very humbling. But it was amazing. And that night, it was a Wednesday, and that night we have chapel, and I got to share with the whole student body like what happened that day. And with other broke college students, it really resonates when we all don't have money. But it was just an amazing experience and a learning experience of trust, because I really didn't have to trust God like that before. Because growing up, I just kind of piggybacked on my parents' faith. So trust in the Lord with all your heart, and don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. That's verse 5 and 6, and that happened to me. I was corrected. I learned a very valuable lesson of trust. And then later on, verse 7 and 8, it says, not being wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord. So like I said, in everything, like just do your best to say, Lord, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand how you're going to pull through. And even if you don't pull through exactly what I need you to, I'm going to trust in you because my life is in your hands. So more clear direction, turn away from evil, of course. And what's really interesting is that your body will actually benefit, like your physical body. It's like, I couldn't help but think, it's kind of similar how stress affects your body. When you get stressed out, your body actually reacts. So when I was reading this, I'm like, oh, if we stay like in prayer and trust in the spiritual like side of God and practice that physically, it actually brings health to your physical body. Like when I was on the phone and when my dad told me school was paid for, it was like a weight was lifted. And I was able to live in freedom and not constantly think about, oh, I gotta pay for this. Oh, I don't have any money. My dad doesn't have any money. I try to get some from him, but just freaking out. But then when freedom came, my body like changed. Like I was more happy. I was jumping. I was feeling free. So when I read this, I was like, wow, like your body will actually experience health, which I think is just amazing. It's another demonstration on how everything's connected. Spiritual health, physical health, emotional health. It's all entangled. And so when I read this verse, at first I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty simple. But then when I really started to think about it, I'm like, oh, this is actually a lot more complex than I thought it was. So that's why when I'm learning at Bible college, I love just digging into simple scripture, because if you actually just take another second to think about it and read about it, it's actually a lot more complex than we think. So this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So when it says not being wise in your own eyes, what does that actually mean? Does that mean pride? Does that mean too self-confident? Does that mean idolizing leadership? Maybe it's a sin you struggle with. Maybe it's something that you think is fine, but it really isn't fine. So sometimes I just kind of struggle with that a little bit. Like, what does that actually mean? And so I have to trust God again, because I don't fully understand what that means. But it's something to pray into, and it's something to figure out for yourselves, because your relationship with Jesus is your relationship with Jesus. Like, nobody else can like dictate how that looks or how that feels. Like, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to dive into that yourself. Because I can't come up to you and be like, oh, you need to fix that and this and that. That's not my place, and it never will be my place or anybody's place if it's uncalled for, if it's not like a mentoring relationship. But Jesus knows what's really going on. So if you have questions, just ask. They're not going to come right away. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But that's where trust comes in. Trust is often the gaps that we can fill when we feel anxious, when we feel the struggle of nothing's working or nothing's going on. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's such a hard thing. Like I still look back to when I was at school in my first year, like, wow, that was a struggle. And to be honest, it's happening right now too with trust. So what I'm about to share, I'm not trying to garner any sympathy or anybody giving me an extra benefit or anything, but I think it's valuable to share what I'm about to share for the sake of praising God and praising Jesus. Because if I were just to say, yeah, I've been trusting God this summer, it's been great. Okay, cool. But no, tell me why. Tell me what's going on. Not in great detail. But basically, when I took this internship at the beginning of April, James and Maria told me that this internship wasn't going to be paid. And I knew that going into it. So my initial reaction was like, oh, okay, well, it's not going to be paid. I don't know if I want to do it. So I started to kind of figure out, okay, how can I get paid? So originally, when I first got here, I was only supposed to be here for May and June. And then in July and August, I'll go back home to Ontario and work and at least make some money. And that was my plan. Instantly, I'm like, oh, I can figure this out. I got a plan. This is how I'm going to make money, but at the same time, I get to come to this church and be with Tanisha, meet her family, and it's going to be great. Yeah, awesome. But then I actually got here, and it was quite different than I pictured. I remember at Bible study, we were with the kids, and I remember being like, oh, I can't believe I only get 8 weeks with these guys. Like, they're incredible. And being with James and Maria and Kristen and Ben taking me in and living in their home, like so many faithful, awesome people have affected my life. But when I went into it, I knew I wasn't getting paid. So I'm like, okay, I get it. Here we go again. I have to trust God again. And like I said, I share this not to be like, hey, I'm not getting paid. I'm kidding. That's not what I'm saying. I just want to clarify that for you guys. I share it because this is my own journey, trusting God. And I want to share it and encourage you guys, because what's happening to me here is so much more valuable than money. And that's hard because there's been moments where Tanisha and I want to go out for a date, but I don't have any money, so let's go for a walk. But you know what? God provides in his own ways. And sometimes that's not money. Sometimes that's character reforming. Sometimes that's more trust that you have to practice. And there's been moments where I've done side jobs. I even worked for James at his home, and he pays me, or Matthew Potter at his lot. And God provides in other ways, but don't get me wrong. There's been moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, like today's been a tough day, and I'm not getting paid for it. Like my mind sometimes quickly goes there. But then I feel convicted. No, hold on. You're learning so much more valuable things rather than money. So remember your first year, Graham? Remember when you had nothing? Remember when you needed me and you were struggling, but I came in? I'm like, yeah, I do remember that. I remember crying so much and being so angry, but yeah, you came in. So I'm not predicting that, at the end of the summer I'm gonna get a whole fat cash. Like that's not, like God's not gonna. I'm not expecting that. When I am already expecting, it's what's happening to me already is that I've been quite transformed by this community. Tanisha and I, we when we hang out, we were talking about how many people we're connecting with. And for me, it's not really normal. Like, oh wow, I've had like hanging out with this person and that person and really getting to know them. Recently, we just went to Nelson for Bailey and Matt. I forget their last name, but they're at church out there. So embarrassing. But we went. Josh and Cam and Doug and Tanisha and I, we went to a worship night, and like just meeting people in Nelson that I thought I would never get to meet. So coming back, not being paid this summer has been a challenge logistically, but also for my own character. To be like, oh, okay, I have to trust in God again. I have to do it again. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was already past this. But every time you trust God more and more, you're able to handle more and more. Which is just incredible because if first year Graham from school was here, he would probably be freaking out. I'm not getting paid, like all this stuff. But since my first experience from my first year and now here, like I'm able to trust God more and be like, hey, like I can do this because the Lord is with me. It's not by my strength. It's not by my willingness or anything of me. I'm just a dude, and the Lord uses that. And so I've been incredibly blessed. And able to trust God more has been challenging, but very, very rewarding. So I just think it's just incredible how, in reality, the Lord, he wants to carry you. He wants to be with you and to carry you through those situations. Like, hey, this sucks. You gonna trust me? You gonna trust me right now? And he's like, I don't know if I will, but I think I will. I don't know. It's a struggle. It's always a back and forth. But you know what? When you're in those situations where you need to trust God, like thank him for that because he wants to refine you. He wants to be with you, refine your character for the next thing that's going to come. Because God is not just going to use you once. He's going to use you for your whole life. So when you're in those struggles and when you need to trust him, just lean into that. Lean into his trust and don't lean into your own understanding. I want to invite the worship team back up. Thanks, everyone. But one of my biggest lessons I've ever learned at Summit when creating a sermon is that you always want to end with hope. You don't want to end with a fire and brimstone, feel bad all day kind of sermon. No, you want to end it with hope. And so I just want to say thank you to this whole church, to every single one of you. Even if this is your first Sunday, thank you for coming because it's been so impactful for me in my walk with God. And I just thank you so much for your generosity and also just your heart for allowing me to preach, because for an intern, this is not normal. This is my third sermon at this church. That's really not normal in like Abbotsford or like the Lower Mainland area. So this has been such an enriching experience, an incredible time to fail and to be bad at stuff. But then have James and Maria and Ben and Kristen be like, hey, let's try again. And if you're not good at preaching, well, that's okay. You can fail here. So I just want to thank you again and again. New Life Church has really affected me in such a great positive way. And I've had the opportunity of meeting so many great people. All the dinners, all the lunches have been awesome. Thank you. It's my way of being paid, is being fed. But my last Sunday is September 5th, so I do have another month. So I'll still be around. But I just, again, thank you so much for trusting me to learn here. And I'm just so thankful to God that I've been able to be here. So trust in the Lord. Don't lean on your own understanding. When you trust in him, you really don't know where he's going to take you. And that is exciting. Thank you.